Welcome to another important episode of Bros Who Know. I'm Dr. Jeff LaCure. To my right, as always, the Dark Knight, the Darth Vader of podcasts. And I know you're not surprised to hear what I'm about to say. We got another good one for you. Another good one for you. We're going to talk about a fool today. No, we're not talking about Governor Tim Walz out of Minnesota, although we could. We're not talking about the Massachusetts governor, Governor Maura Healey, but we could. We're not even talking about Chameleon Harris today, but we could. No, we're talking about another fool, Sean Combs, or as I like to call him, P. Duty, because there's going to be a lot of P. Dutying going along in prison, or my new favorite one for him, Poof Daddy, because his career just went poof. It's over. It's done. It's history. So I'm going to turn it over to Rich, who, by the way, I have never once said is the P Diddy. Thank God.
No, thank God I didn't.
Of podcasts. And by the way, Rich, for the rest of this episode, I'm just going to refer to him as his given name because I can't call somebody by a nickname that they gave themselves.
Okay.
If that makes sense. Like if it was a nickname his friends gave him,
Right.
but I did some research, Rich, and he gave himself the nickname. So I might call him Poof Daddy, right? Because that career is just poof. Rich, what do you got, man? Sean Combs in jail.
I know. This is another. It's another episode of people do not understand how life works.
No,
Okay.
no, they don't.
There's an equation for life, and one part of the equation that's a constant is called perception.
Mm-hmm.
10 years ago, 15 years ago, what you did 10 years ago, 15 years ago, people might not have cared.
Mm-hmm.
They might have overlooked it. But as time goes on, right, perception change. And if you don't change with perception,
Mm-hmm.
you might get caught up. So here it is, perception change. Those parties went from I didn't see anything to I see everything, and now it's documented. They have the receipts,
Yeah,
and it's a tough one for him. I
yeah,
don't think he's gonna. And what people don't understand is people say, "Oh yeah, he put up $50 million to try to get for bail."
mm-hmm.
They don't want that 50 million because they're going to take all of it. If they get racketeering charges, they're freezing all of his assets.
That's right.
So it's one of those things where he would, I'm telling you, he had a gift. He was never himself.
Mm-hmm.
So it's another problem that you and I are going to talk about. And that's when we talk about that, when I mean he's not himself, I think he's gay.
Mm-hmm.
So, when you try to hide that,
Mm-hmm.
you're not speaking your truth.
That's right.
And that kind of comes out in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
It sure does.
So we have a lot to talk about.
We
What do you
do.
think?
And Rich, for me, the biggest thing that has come out of this is, a couple things. That when you have a lot of success, a lot of people don't handle it well, clearly.
Mm-hmm.
When you gain power, and he certainly had entertainment and musical power, you take advantage of that power frequently. And we could talk about the legacy of the presidents and how many affairs they've had. Martin Luther King, very powerful man, how many affairs he had on his wife. So there's a lot of funny things. But the thing that stands out most to me that I hope, particularly as we're getting ready to vote, I hope people will really pay attention to, rappers aren't role models. Entertainers aren't role models. Taylor Swift is not a role model. They're not role models because they're entertainers and they're successful.
Yeah, but couldn't they be?
What's that?
Couldn't they be? Wouldn't that be the goal though?
Now, their goal, which I would support, is to make as much money and be as successful as they can.
But you cannot do both, is what you're saying.
I think they potentially could do both, where they could live their life a certain way that we might say, hey, success hasn't jaded them, right? But what is clear to me that this whole Sean Combs thing that brings to light, and I'm speaking specifically to young males, rappers they're just not role models, right? What they look, and I love the music, I actually do, but the lyrics and so on, they're not inspirational. They're not supposed to be. They're supposed to be for entertainment. But we know all cultures are trying to be, right? That created a whole fashion, a whole look, a whole persona. And what we're finding out, who cares who Poof Daddy or Taylor Swift River, anybody wants to support as a political candidate? Why should their opinion mean anything, right?
Why?
Hmm.
Well, I believe. Well, we'll cross that bridge.
Yeah,
Let's stay on topic with Puff Daddy. So I guess so. I have a couple questions for you
deal.
since you're the licensed psychologist there,
I'm the shrink of the bunch.
right? So obviously, when you have power as much as P Diddy did, um, if it's unchecked,
Hmm.
it will manifest to crazy like levels.
Hmm.
Unchecked
Hmm.
until we get to here, where now he's dealing with life in prison.
Hmm.
Why is it when you do not tell the truth to yourself, meaning that if he is gay, right?
Hmm.
And there's a lot of speculation that he is gay. Why does that manifest to all these other bad things, Jeff?
You know what I feel like is under it a lot, and I wish I could tell you who came up with the quote, but I believe in the quote. It says power corrupts. And I think there are very few people, Rich, who handle power well. It's intoxicating. You get a lot of things right at you, right there. If this takes off, right, what we do, if we get millions of viewers, we gain some power. It's a media power. It's an advertising power. It's a dollar power. I'd like to think you and I would stay grounded, right? Uh, this dude, probably, I don't know enough about his background. I did a little research on our good friend Sean Combs, who has 12 different nicknames and he's given himself every one. I don't think he had the same background you and I had as far as family values, as far as structure, as far as value. And then you throw into the mix a real question, is he being honest about his sexuality, right? Our tagline on Bros Who Know is irrefutably authentic, right? That what the viewer sees with you and I is authentic. The fact that you're in all black, that ain't an act. That's you, right? The fact that I come out here with no socks and weird, funky colored t-shirts, that's me. We're authentic. It seems like power sometimes, right, sort of corrupts their authenticity. And when you can do a lot of things and get away with it, guess what a lot of people do?
They do a lot of things.
They do a lot of things and get away with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, all right.
It'd be ironic as hell if he ever comes out and says, I'm gay or I'm bisexual. Bisexual, I don't think would shock the world because of the way the world is.
Mm-hmm.
But if he comes out and says, yeah, I'm gay.
Yeah, but everyone knows he's been having sexual relations with men.
Yeah.
So here's another thing. So I have another one for you.
Yeah.
I believe if he didn't do drugs and he didn't drink,
Mm-hmm.
right? I believe that none of this would have happened.
Certainly didn't help, did it? Because talk
If
about.
you take that out of the equation, do you think that he would be in the situation that he's in?
I'd like to think he would have made even better decisions because, in the same way that power corrupts, substance abuse corrupts.
Right.
Right. So that's a great observation, Rich, is that when you start messing around with chemicals, it interferes with your ability to demonstrate good judgment.
Right.
Right? Because in some ways, you've already demonstrated poor judgment by putting those chemicals in your body. And so, again, it just shows that. I'll give you the deep psychological part of this. The majority of musicians and actors and actresses, entertainers that have hit the top, have one direction to go, and that's down.
That's true. Mm-hmm.
And a lot of studies have been done to answer the question, why do so many entertainers, regardless of what industry they're in, truly battle substance abuse issues? And here's what I know it is. Here's what I absolutely know it is. And I'm not saying I'm an entertainer. I'm not saying I'm a celebrity. But back in the day, I used to do talks to, sometimes it'd be 1,000 people in the audience. And that's a rush. I mean, that is a rush, Rich, right? When I'd be talking about something serious and I could make people cry. I'd throw out my jokes and make people laugh, and people come up and they're, oh, you signed my book? And then I would go to my hotel room and I'd be alone. And that rush, I wanted it to keep going. And that's what happens to the entertainer who leaves stage, right? The audience is clapping and cheering, and then the applause stops, and they want the high, and it is a high to be in front of 1,000 people. It's a
Right.
high.
Right.
They want that rush to continue. How do they create that rush? They create it artificially. That is not something that I ever got into because I was really aware of it. But I got to tell you, Rich, and I'm not conflating myself with his success right in front of
No,
the audience.
I get exactly what you're saying.
But I'll tell you, I would sit in my room and I'd be like, wow, to go from this rush of people, can we, can
Right.
you sign our book and can you talk to us about A, B, and C? And to go back to my room and have room service, and the person who comes to the door has no clue who I am.
Well, see, that's a problem within itself, and I'll tell you why, Jeff.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of these musicians, right, actors or whatever, they start off when they're young.
Mm-hmm.
And when they're young, they don't even know themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And by the time they know themselves, they're in their 50s and 60s, and they don't have the same, amount of viewers,
Yes,
right? So, and like I said, perception changed too.
it sure
They're not.
does.
They don't look as good as they did when they were younger.
Mm-hmm.
All the young people that loved them now they're older. So if
That's
you
right.
see them again, like say if you made a cameo appearance
Mm-hmm.
or you did a show, all your older viewers are going to show up, and even the landscape looks different,
That's right.
right? So and I think people have a problem with that because just like okay, Madonna for instance, Madonna's the only one that kind of reinvented herself
Mm-hmm.
as time went on, but Michael Jackson didn't, Prince didn't, and because of perception, they didn't change. They didn't change. They kept the same style like since 1980,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that that hurt them towards the end,
Right.
right? So let's get back to P Diddy. So I have questions for you. So do you think that if you think that if P Diddy, uh, if he understood that if he was a real human being, if he understood himself, knowing that if he came out saying that I'm gay, and this, do you think he would have committed all these heinous crimes?
You know what, Rich? That's a great question. Here's what I can say with confidence: is the likelihood of him doing that kind of nonsense goes down exponentially if he's honest with himself and he's living a chemical-free lifestyle,
Right.
right? And I'll throw this out as an interesting example. It's funny, I just saw it the other day, and I hope the viewers won't hold this against me, and you'll probably lose some respect points for me, Rich, but I'm throwing it out. So one of my all-time favorite musicians are Daryl Hall and John Oates. And I saw an interview, and they're now in their late 70s, man, which blows my mind. But I saw an interview with them the other day. It was an older interview when they were still together. And the interview, they've had tremendous success. And they asked them about it. And John Oates comes out and he says, it was much more fun getting to the top than it was being on top.
Oh yes, absolutely.
Doesn't that say a lot?
That's
That it's,
everything though.
right?
It's more fun even when we work out. From
Yes.
being at the beginning to getting there, but to stay there, that's not fun.
It's less fun, isn't it?
Yes, yes.
And so
That's
it's
anything.
sort of back to your question about our good buddy Sean Poofy Combs. Poof.
It's terrible. I
Right?
know. It's
Grand
terrible.
opening, grand closing, although he had a long, illustrious career. But back to the point is, at some point he was, right, he was producing everybody,
Mm-hmm.
right? And he only had one place to go. And like so many people, you can branch out one of two ways. A really healthy way, you see entertainers open up their own restaurants, that kind of, right? There's something else that feeds their soul. It's another
Right.
challenge. I don't know if he ever did that. I think
No, he did. He opened up like the vodka. He had his own.
Oh,
drink.
that's true. That's
he had
very
his own
true.
clothing company.
Actually,
He
yeah, what am
definitely-
I saying?
yeah, he definitely
Shows you how hip
diverse.
and trendy I am.
So I guess to go back, what I was telling you is this is weird. This happens to so many people. This is the oddest thing.
Mm-hmm.
So when Sean Puffy Combs, right, He'd been in this career for about 30, 40 years, I don't even know.
Oh, gotta be, yeah.
He paid taxes for 30, 40 years, right? So the government made so much money off of him. And now he's in a position where the government can just say that it's
Take
a
it
RICO and just take it all. What do you think about that? So it was designed that he more money you make, the more taxes that you give.
Right.
So he's in a position, he was a revenue stream for the government,
He sure was.
right? And now, as a middle-aged man, right, he's in a position that he put himself in, that because of the RICO status, they can confiscate anything that he made, that if they called it a illegal enterprise.
Right.
How do you feel about that, Jeff?
I'm torn, Rich. My conservative roots, my libertarian roots, my independent roots, really wants to tell the government, and I love this flag, stay out of my business. On the other hand, I also believe in law and order and justice. And, what is another cliche? If you can't do the time, don't do the crime. And so I'm conflicted in one sense, right? This human trafficking element and some of the other stuff, and clearly, well, I don't want to say clearly because innocent until proven guilty, but it looks like there's some child abuse in there and some other things going on. That's different. But a government coming in, right, and taking your stuff. If I can illustrate something, a personal thing, which it's a weird thing to share, but I'm going to do it.
Right.
Is when I got divorced, I ended up, soon thereafter I got cancer. I ended up losing my job, and it was really hard for me financially. It was tough, Rich.
I'm listening.
And instead of going back to court to reduce my child support payments, I tried to continue to make the same payments. Here's the punchline. That wasn't good enough for my ex-wife. She was like, "You owe me this money." And guess what the state of Massachusetts did?
They gave you the money.
They took everything out of my accounts. The federal government refused to give me a passport because, you're a couple thousand behind. You might leave the country. So I have at least I'm honest, I'm transparent. I have a biased view of the overreach of the government, right? They went into my checking and savings accounts and like a vacuum just went like this. Didn't take anything into account that I had extra, circumstances that were playing a role. I wasn't being some deadbeat dad by any stretch of the imagination. But because it wasn't a full payment, they said, here we go. And they didn't care that for a month in January when I was living down in Central Mass that I had to borrow from people to buy heating oil. They didn't care. So when you ask me about, when these RICO charges and that the government can just come in, that is not what our country was founded on.
I know it's.
And it's off topic, but I'll be so quick with it, Rich. If you and I deposit $600 or more in cash, the government has a right to know, right? If you're Venmo'd a certain amount, and you know me, I love cars. I said that with such a smile. One of my most recent purchases, I put a lot of cash down, and I had to fill out a form, and then I got a form from our federal IRS saying, hey, you pretty much just informing me if you put more than $10,000 in cash down,
You have to report it.
right? That feels like overreach. So that's why I say I'm conflicted about. It feels like he's done some crimes, and it feels like he needs to have the punishment that goes with the crime.
Right. But he did do legal work as well, like the songs, the records that he made.
That's right.
The people, the people he sponsored or took under his wing, that made money, right, as an agent. So he did. I'm telling you, he has a legitimate business. But because of the crime, do you think they should be able to take everything?
Well, that's where I feel like that there's government overreach because you and I technically are supposed to be the government. You and I are supposed to be who the government works for. That's in the Constitution.
Right.
But there's I'm not making that up. That's why the framers of the Constitution said the government works for the people by the people, right? This is the deal. And so Do I sense the possibility that there could be even judicial overreach against this guy because it is this guy? Absolutely. Look what they did to Trump. Again, not to get off topic, look what they've done to people in power who may not be good people, but at some point they have a right to the judicial
When you say
process.
they, who you referring to? What they did to Trump? Who you referring to?
Well, our own DOJ, Department of Justice, and look at the DA in New York City, two of them just coming at him, in Atlanta coming at him, that kind of thing. So you and I've talked a lot about this, Rich, is that when people have real success, it builds jealousy, and people
does.
want to tear you down.
There's a lot of responsibility, and this is what we talked about women too.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of responsibility when you have power.
Mm-hmm.
One is, like I said, if it's not checked and you don't understand it,
Mm-hmm.
then all you're doing is you're creating receipts for something like this to happen that they're like, all right, you've been doing this for X amount of years.
That's right.
They could have stopped it X amount of years ago, but it's let you do what you want to do,
Mm-hmm.
all right, until it's time. And now they have a history of what you're doing.
Right.
So I guess the next question is going to be a tough one. You ready for this one?
Yeah.
Do you think the victims should hold any responsibility to this?
I would need to know the specific detail.
Okay, meaning, so, hypothetically speaking,
Yeah.
right? Like if a man wanted to be the head rapper,
Mm-hmm.
and he performed some tricks so he can be there, like some sexual tricks to be
Mm-hmm.
there. Do you think he should own some responsibility of what he's done?
I do, actually, and I'm not justifying that if Sean or anybody else in power, Harvey Weinstein, right? Everything about that, it's called the casting couch in some ways,
Mm-hmm.
is 100% wrong. And notice I didn't say but. And as an adult, see, that's the difference to me. As an adult, you have to be able to say, no, I'm not going to fool with you, so I can get a contract. Now I know that's career suicide, but at some point you also have to stand up for your own value. I'll give you another super quick example, Rich. Boy, it was like, this is my life. Years ago, I guess it was years ago, I got offered a wonderful job at Eastern Connecticut State University in Connecticut to be in charge of their social work department. I was pumped. The timing was good. The commute was good. I only had to work 2 days a week. Oh, are you kidding me? Summers off. It was awesome. Good salary. I love teaching. I love management. And our very first meeting we had in August, this was 2015, or maybe it was 16, whenever the election was. It was a few months before the November election, so I guess it would have been 2015 or 2016. The head she oversaw a lot of different departments, including mine. She brings all these department heads together and says, well, we're going to be doing all these Hillary Clinton activities this year. We're going to be signing up kids to vote. We're going to be registering them to be Democrats. We're going to be doing all this Hillary Clinton stuff. And I'm sitting there going, I ain't doing that. No way, no how. Even if she said we're going to be doing Trump stuff, I would have said to myself, that's not my role, is to tell young people how they got to vote, right? And I'm not carrying a sign on behalf of Eastern Connecticut State University. So I know you'll probably shock you, Rich, I sat there in silence, but I knew I was done. And the very next day I asked to have a meeting with her, and I withdrew. I was done.
All right. So you proved my point. That's what I was getting at when I said that P. Diddy Combs, if he was honest to himself, would
Yes.
he be in the situation that he's in?
Yes.
And the thing is, if he was honest to himself, I don't think he would have been in the situation. I think if he understood, if he understood the truth about himself,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
He would have just lived that life. I also think this. If you take alcohol out of the equation, you take drugs out of the equation, and he was honest to himself, he might have done okay in the music business. He wouldn't be where he is.
No.
He wouldn't be a billionaire.
That's right.
In order to be a billionaire,
Gotta play the
unfortunately, you have to kind of sell your soul.
Yep.
Okay, a little
Good
bit.
point.
You know, And when I say that, I'm not taking any responsibility away from him, but what I'm saying to you is that shame on the prosecutors for doing this today or now, okay, and let this go on for so long, because when someone does something for so long, they don't think they're wrong at this point.
That's right. He didn't think it was coming down. No
He
way.
didn't think it was gonna. He don't think it's wrong because he's been doing it. So
Right.
this is how you figure out the truth, right? The
Mhm.
truth is, if something the color white, for instance, on the wall,
Mhm.
time made that the truth because that thing's been white since it's been white,
That's right.
right?
Right.
So when you put anything and you use time, right?
Yeah,
If it's sustained enough time, it becomes the truth.
that's right.
So he's been doing this for so long, and this was probably like, what? I'm really getting arrested for this? Like I didn't do anything. All I did was hire, like people hire this and people hire that, you know.
You know what makes me wonder though, Rich?
What's that?
I don't know. This is just a shrink of me wondering. Because of some of the stories, and again, they're stories, we'll see if they're true. But if they're true about his sexapades, things he was doing, and look, there's a whole range of normal sexual behavior. There's a
Right,
whole
right.
range, right? So I'm not sitting here in judgment of people's sexual behavior. The however is, and there's a big however, because if any of these stories are true about some of the stuff he was doing with young people and other things and some funky things and 1,000 bottles of baby oil, that'd be interesting if that's true. Makes me wonder if he's been abused as a kid himself.
Yeah,
It does,
that's the word on the street. He's been abused,
really makes me wonder
Yeah.
because
but that doesn't change his outcome, though.
it doesn't change responsibility. What
No.
it does is when, you know, I'm not saying every kid who's sexually abused grows up to do stuff that he did, but when we peel the onion back, when we look at sexual abusers and people who are kind of funky about their views on sexuality, almost 100% of the time, they were indeed abused. And so it does make me wonder. Gives me empathy for him.
Right.
However, if the stuff, particularly with these under 18-year-olds, are true, and even under 21, let's be honest,
I know it's terrible.
that's a young age, man.
It's like I said, I can't even because my daughter's 22.
Yeah.
But because of my daughter, because I have a daughter, I have to live a certain way. Okay, so let's go back. I have
Before
another
you
one.
do, I'm glad you brought up your daughter because admit it, if your daughter had been part of that and you felt like, holy cow, she was taken advantage of, he wouldn't be P. Diddy. He'd be P. Daddy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
True?
Well, I'll
'Cause
tell you
Big-
that. I'll
'cause
tell you
Big
the.
Daddy
I'll tell you the truth.
would
I'll tell
take
you the
him
truth.
down.
I'll tell you the truth.
That was a good joke, by the
I
way.
know.
P. Diddy. P. Daddy. Daddy, that's it.
When it comes to my daughter, unfortunately, my daughter is the only the only way I could ever lose my freedom.
Hmm.
You know, 'cause it's either that I lost my freedom anyway. If anything ever happens to my daughter, I would lose my freedom because I wouldn't be able to sleep. I wouldn't be able. I couldn't even be me. But that's a whole different ballgame.
I'd be in a cell right next door to you, Rich. We'd start our own club.
Right. So, I want to talk about what's that guy's name? He's having a lot of problems now. He's young. He's Beaver. I want to talk about Beaver.
Oh, Justin
Okay.
Bieber, yeah.
So if Justin Bieber gets pulled into this, right? He started when he was young,
Real young.
and you know he was definitely manipulated.
Mm-hmm.
Should he get a pass? Now this is just your opinion. Do you think he should get a pass on anything that he has done?
Bieber?
Yeah.
You mean is a past that he may have been involved, or
Say if he was partake in some of these things.
yeah?
Do you think he should get a pass because he was planted in that scenario?
Oh, he was certainly groomed, wasn't he?
Right. I'm talking about at that point when you're groomed that young, right? You've definitely been brainwashed.
Yes.
Should he take any responsibility for this? Being that young and being groomed?
Here's where the line in the sand for me is, Rich, that I'll never waver on, and never's a long time. If it involves children,
I know. Well, that's
right,
what
then he knew, you know, hey, I shouldn't, right, this is never okay.
I'd rather
never
kill
cool.
myself, yeah.
The however is, and this is one of the maybe good things about our legal system, notice I say maybe, is it does have a stipulation, a practice that sometimes children are not held accountable and responsible legally for their actions. And I think sometimes that's really good because, if the adults are around him and manipulating and so on, which it sounds like happened, and I believe Usher as well,
I
right?
know.
Wasn't Usher?
Usher, yeah.
And Usher has been really like,
I
hey,
know.
I don't,
So yeah, so that's your opinion, right?
yeah.
My opinion is that's the problem. That's I'm talking about. I like P Diddy's work, uh, but that's the part that makes me like dislike him.
Hmm.
The fact that a child like Beaver and Usher,
Hmm.
right? How he gave him the balloon payment.
Hmm.
Like in order to have this, you have to learn this, and you
And
can
do
never
this.
enjoy this
That's right.
because of this.
Hmm.
He took away the innocence. He took away. He took
Hmm.
away. I'm talking. Beaver's having a hard time. I'm talking his songs. I was listening to one of his sad songs the other day. It's so deep.
Hmm.
Um, he destroyed that kid from the inside out,
Hmm.
and it's a very sad situation. And now, when someone gets destroyed that way,
Hmm.
right, like Beaver, can he bounce back mentally?
Yes.
How?
However, it's not easy, right?
How do you do it?
Because so even when you see with all these child actors that had that rush of success, and then all of a sudden they have massive
Right. But
drug
that's a little
issues and so
different.
on.
That's a little different. If he was sexually, now I'm just this is all
Well, a lot of
hypothetical. We
them
don't
were. A
know.
lot of the child actors were
If he was sexually raped,
abused. Yeah.
abused, right, and put in a scenario,
Hmm.
right, how can one get better from that?
You know what, Rich? That, again, a wonderful, deep question, man. That I'll give you the shorter answer, and I hope I do justice to it, which is you never fully recover because you never fully develop trust. And you and I are both fathers, and we can't protect our kids from everything, but we can protect our kids from most things. And what we know is a lot of families, and I'm not saying his did, I don't know his family, but I know a lot of families like his family that had kids who were models or actors or performers or even athletes who were getting early success. And a lot of families sell their soul to the devil,
Yeah.
right? When they're kind of like this, that couldn't possibly be happening. Instead of thinking, the reality is there's some shady shit going on behind the scenes, and I'm not letting my kid get behind the scenes without me being behind the scenes with them. And you know what a lot of producers, both in music and entertainment and movies, do? They don't want the parent behind the scenes. That's come out loud and clear. That's not conjecture on my part. They're labeled as a really nudgy parent, a really a tough parent to work with. No, they're not. No, they're not. They're doing their job as a parent, right? Imagine sending your kid off at age 12 to just say, hey, go hang out with this group. And again, not to blow it up, this is documented, and unless he lied, which I don't, there's no way he lied. Michael Jackson used to talk about, right?
Yeah.
That he'd be in the hotel room and his brothers would be getting it on with somebody. Well, what
Yeah.
kind of, no
Yeah.
wonder that dude had some weird kind of whole views about intimacy and so on. And
Right.
so,
He
back to your
was.
question, do I think Justin's going to fully recover? No.
Mm.
Do I think he can live a really good life? Yes, but I'm going to sort of close it where you started it, which is you said if Sean Combs had been honest, would he be in this? That's the road to recovery for Justin Bieber. He's got to be honest about what happened to him. Doesn't need to share that with the world, nor should he. Like if a reporter says what happened to you,
Right.
he should say, "Stay in here with me." But he needs to be honest with it, and he also needs to be really honest about his role moving forward. Did he do anything as a young man? Did he do anything at 22, 23, 24,
To harm
25
to harm other kids. Yeah.
with other young people coming up?
Yeah, that's a tough one. So my last one, and this is it.
Yep, we'll close it
Cassie.
at that one.
Okay, with this one.
Yeah.
Cassie. Okay. Cassie. You saw the video.
Which one?
When P Diddy in the hotel lobby
Oh yeah.
kicked her.
Oh yeah.
So what you know? So let me talk about it for a second.
Yeah.
So something happened. She was trying to leave.
Mm-hmm.
He runs out of his room with a towel on.
Yep.
He pulls her by the hair. He kicks her. Now he's bigger than her. He's stronger than her.
Mm-hmm.
it seemed like if you look at the video, it was superficial hits. Like he's not like beating her with his fist, but he's definitely scaring her, and he kicked her. You know,
Mm-hmm.
the kick he had would even kick a ball down the street. But it looks bad,
It sure does.
and it's demeaning for a human being.
Absolutely.
Okay, very, like she felt like she wasn't even human when this was happening to
No.
her. You can assume that, right?
Yeah.
So when you have that much power,
Mm-hmm.
what makes you think with all these cameras that at the stature that he's at,
Mm-hmm.
that he can run out of the hotel room
Mm-hmm.
and commit that in front of everyone
Mm-hmm.
and think that that's never going to come out? Like what's going on in his mind?
Well, I look at it again in the bigger picture. Even our professional athletes, how many of them, right, have a history of domestic violence against them, and that they've perpetrated? They've been the victim. They've been the perpetrator. And again, I'll come back to that phrase, Rich, which I think might be the title of this one: "Power corrupts." And you knocked it out of the park by sharing this one detail that I think the viewers probably missed. Not because they didn't hear it, because they didn't understand it, right? Which is, you said, $50 million in bail was denied, right? Most people, if they get arrested, right, for these kind of crimes, you can't get bailed out. You don't have enough money to do it. So he's in an industry where you're Teflon, where he was getting away with it. People knew what he was doing, right?
Right.
But if he continued to sign the checks, throw great parties, and what I love, and we'll try to embed it into the video, you can look at President Trump has pictures with him over the years. Chameleon Harris has pictures with him over the years. Why? Because power attracts power, and you want to be with these people that have influence. Oprah Winfrey, for God's sakes, has a picture of herself with Bill Cosby, Harvey Weinstein, Jeffrey Epstein, and Sean Combs, right? That she'd like to distance herself from. But the bottom line is, when you hit a certain level of stuff, you truly believe that you can get away with it. It's that movie, A Few Good Men. I believe that's the name of it, right, with Jack Nicholson, and they kill a soldier. I know it's the movie, but he justifies it and feels like, as a colonel, that's the character that Nicholson plays, that he's going to get away with it because what he did he could justify. Well, in some weird, demented way, Sean Combs probably was at that moment, she's disrespecting me, she's not listening to me, I give her all these good things, we don't even know what the background is, but
Right,
whatever
correct.
it is. And how old was that video? Any guess?
It was probably I think 11 years old, 15 years old.
So it wasn't
It
like
came
it
out right
wasn't.
when it came
So
out.
clearly the security saw it and they're like,
Right.
well, we can't come after Sean
Well, I guess
Combs for that.
he paid them off.
Yeah.
But either way,
You and I do something like that,
we would have been arrested
game
a long time
over.
ago. Yeah, game over.
I'd come visit you though.
I'll come visit you. So I guess I'm gonna close it with me, and
Yeah.
then you close it with you.
Deal.
So this is a learning for all of us.
It sure is.
Don't judge unless you're in it. You're not a billionaire. I'm not a billionaire. You're not a billionaire.
Mm-hmm.
When you have that much power and you get away with something small, and you get away with it, then that turns into something bigger than that. It has a snowball effect. And before you know it, you have lost yourself. If you wasn't honest with yourself in the beginning, if you're honest with yourself in the beginning, you're gonna have a snowball effect of that. But
That's
the
right.
problem with that is your success level will probably be here. You have to do some things bad to be where P. Diddy is at being a billionaire.
You make a deal with the devil.
Right. So this is what I want you guys to think about. Never pass judgment. He's still innocent until proven guilty.
That's right.
And if you were a billionaire and you got away with X amount, and you lose yourself and you find yourself in a situation like he's in, the question you have to ask yourself, did that make you a bad person? I'm going to say P. Diddy was a bad person because he lied to himself. He never looked in the mirror and said, this is who I am, and then been grateful from that. What do you have to say?
I couldn't say it any better, Rich. I'm going to leave it at that, man.
All right.
I love it. I love it. Hey, folks, we gave you something else to think about today. I will say this. Rich said, you can't judge until you're in someone else's shoes. And what would you do if you had that level of influence, money, and power? Hopefully, you'd make much better decisions. But bottom line, you're not. So take Rich's advice and be honest with who you are. Because if you can't be honest with who you are, A, you never know who you are. And most importantly, the people who love and care about you don't know who you are. Hey, I'm Dr. Jeff LaCure. To my right is the Dark Knight of podcast, Richard Yancey. I'm excited to announce that we're about to take our podcast on the road. We're going to be bringing you some very, very, very important and timely content. I'm going to leave you hanging, but I'm going to tell you, one of our next episodes, we are going to be out of the studio and out in the community. We'll be looking for you. We hope you'll be looking for us. Stay safe out there. You know we love you.